Can you tell the story of Henry II? How did Henry's knights accidentally interpret his words and kill Thomas Becket? Henry II, interesting person. What was the words? Will nobody rid me of this meddlesome priest? That's what he had said. So, who was Henry II? So, like I said, there was an invasion of England by the Normans, by William of Normandy in the year 1066 AD. William the Conqueror. He had multiple sons. His last son, the youngest son, the eighthling, was Henry Beauclerc. And he was known as Henry I. He became the King of England after the death of William Rufus, his older brother, who died in the New Forest. Hunting accident. Convenient. So Henry I becomes the King of England. And he had a crown prince who died in the sinking of the white ship, which was crossing the English Channel, because of which his daughter, Matilda, became his heir, and she became the Empress of England. So Matilda's son was Henry II. Henry II was the grandson of Henry I and the great grandson of William the Conqueror. So Henry II was born in what is now France. Okay, his father was Geoffrey of Anjou, and his mother was Empress Matilda, daughter of Henry I. So Henry II was the Duke of Normandy, and he was a great conqueror. Okay, he married Eleanor of Aquitaine, and because of which Aquitaine was a part of France and Spain and so on, and he waged many wars and conquests, and he expanded his kingdom in France. Then he became the King of England also, because his grandfather was the King of England, and so he succeeded the current King of England as the King of England. And then he fought multiple campaigns in Scotland, in Ireland, also in France, in Wales also, and he expanded his kingdom significantly, his empire, you could say. So he became a major ruler in Western Europe, and he had, I don't know how many children, 7, 8 children, multiple sons. And now, when you have this army of entitled children who are all descendants of William the Conqueror and all sons of the king, they all want power. And eventually there was a rebellion. His sons rebelled. One of his sons was, who were his sons? There was King John, the younger John. There was Edward, was it? There was Richard, who eventually was known as Richard the Lionheart, and so on. Multiple sons. So there were 2 rebellions by his sons that he had to put down. Okay, repeated quarrels with his sons, especially Richard the Lionheart, and all that stuff. Right? He was even eventually defeated by his son Richard, and that eventually led to the death of Henry II. But what about this person, Thomas Becket? So Henry II was a friend of Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket was a churchman. He was a priest. Okay, so Henry II appointed Thomas Becket as his royal chancellor in the 12th century AD, and Becket was a close friend, close companion of the king, and he was very good at serving the royal interests of the king. And because of that, the king was very pleased with Thomas Becket. And then the king, Henry II, appointed Thomas Becket as the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is a very major church title in England. Okay, so Thomas Becket was appointed by Henry as the Archbishop of Canterbury. But after this happened, Thomas Becket he kind of changed his tune, and he started placing the interests of the church above the interests of the crown. And that became a problem. He is now the Archbishop of Canterbury, the most high-ranking church official in England, and he's going up against the king. He's putting the interest of the church and the principles of the church above what the king wants. He wants to control the clergy. He wants to control, so that makes him very powerful, right? And because of that, Henry sent Thomas Becket into exile, out of the country. And eventually there was some kind of reconciliation between Becket and the king, and he came back, but very quickly the disputes once again flared up between the two of them, right? And because of this, Henry II was super frustrated with Thomas Becket. It is said that one day in his court, he just said this aloud to nobody in particular. He said, "Will nobody rid me of this meddlesome priest? Will nobody rid me of this meddlesome priest?" So he did not say this to one person specifically. He just said this aloud. And four of his knights, they heard these angry words and they interpreted these angry words as a command to act. And they went to Canterbury, and they assassinated Thomas Becket in the altar of the cathedral or whatever it is over there. And that was the deal. That is how the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket, was assassinated by four knights of Henry II, who interpreted Henry's words as the command to assassinate Thomas Becket. So those words are very famous today. Will no one rid me of this troublesome, meddlesome, turbulent priest? So by saying these words to nobody in particular, and by framing what he said as a question, Henry II established plausible deniability for any guilt, because see, his words led to the assassination of the Archbishop of Canterbury. But he can say that, you know what, I just asked a question. I did not issue an order to somebody. I did not say this to anybody in particular. I just said this aloud out of frustration. Will nobody rid me of this troublesome, meddlesome priest? Right? So that's the story of Henry II and the assassination of Thomas Becket.